Being an entrepreneur isn't easy. Being a serial entrepreneur is even harder. Imagine doing that in a war-torn country. This is exactly what today's guest did. Today, we're joined by Hrair Shahbazyan. He's a CEO behind an offshore tech development agency and a visionary founder of Uteach. Welcome, Hrair.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you for joining us today and accepting our invite. Let's start with just a little bit about your background and where you're actually joining us from.
I'm based in Yerevan, Armenia, and I started my career as a web developer like 15 years ago. And then after a couple of years of being just a developer, I become a team leader, and then eventually I become a businessman. I started my own agency. It's a good story. If we have time, I can tell about that.
Yeah, I would love to hear it.
So I was working with a startup guy from USA. We hired a whole team here. Like I hired my friends, my good developer friends. We have already about 10 developers here, and I was managing director in Armenia. And one day we started not to get our salaries 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. And then I realized that startup went bankrupt, but we didn't know about that. But all my relatives, everyone knew that we are going to open a company. So me with a couple of friends just got a couple of new laptops and opened our first company. And then here you go. Now we have 60 plus employees, and we are doing development for different startup companies.
What made you decide, okay, let's start a company? Was it because you already felt almost self-employed working at that location or, that particular workplace that you're like, let's do it? Or did you all just say, what do we have to lose? Let's give it a little bit of time.
We lost everything by the time. We didn't get salaries for a couple of months. We didn't have money. We didn't have anything.
So you were acting like a bootstrap startup anyway.
Yeah. And my ego, like everyone knew that he should open company. And it's kind of ego thing that I started my own company. So everyone knows that he will open his company.
So what were the challenges in the early days when it was just a few people?
Everything was a challenge. I was a director. I was a developer. I was a designer. I did everything. I had only one friend with me and one other guy who was a junior or kind of intern. So I had to do everything. I worked about 16, 18 hours a day. So it was really a challenging time, but it was also good. So, and, and the worst thing that I just married and my baby was born. He was just couple of months.
Wow.
So, probably because of that, I succeed.
Did you have any
without
doubt?
the pressure? Yeah, without that pressure, probably I
Interesting.
wouldn't.
Did you consider at any point, oh, should I go and get a paycheck from someone else and not myself? Or are you fully committed?
I'm fully committed.
At what point did you know that you have to start hiring people and building a team?
At first, I didn't hire anyone. I started to invite my friends who didn't know anything about development, about programming, and I taught them programming. So all they were interns. I didn't pay high salaries to them, so they started to work with me, and then after a couple of years, we started to hire senior people. And now, when I compare my company 5 years ago and now, 5 years ago, we didn't have any senior people in our company, only me. And now, 80% of people or 70% of people are senior and high paid.
Tell us how did you go about being in Armenia and trying to find clients for this company?
It's really interesting. I was in the US like 3 years ago, and I got a call from a guy from Germany. He's an Armenian, so he wanted to hire. Yeah, he wanted to give us a project. It was a small project. We started to. We, and then we started to do partnership and started to work together. And now he give us almost 90% of projects. So he's doing the sales in Germany, and we are hub in Armenia. But before him, I was doing the sales myself. There are a lot of platforms like LinkedIn, Upwork, or some other platforms where I was pitching to a lot of people every day to get uh, a project from them. So it was always challenging because you are in a country like Armenia. No one knows about Armenia. It's not Europe. It's not US, and there is a lot of trust issues because they don't know you. And it was hard, but now, like in Germany, in Munich, everyone knows our company in startup ecosystem.
That's great. Um, would you consider yourself a salesperson, or is that something you had to actually learn?
I am not salesperson totally. Even when I started the company, I even didn't know how to speak English. I
Wow.
learned English after I started my company. I hate sales meetings. I never liked that, but I started to learn how to do that. I'm more programmer than salesperson. I'm more technical. But now probably I do sales better than programming.
Yeah, it's the hat you have to wear when you start a company. It's such an important skill that I think a lot of people underestimate how important just having some sales skills is. Otherwise, how are you going to bring in the revenue? Yeah, it's fascinating. I think the audience knows I'm Armenian, obviously, as well. So I've always been very fascinated in learning how from Armenia, so many good tech companies are starting to come up and emerge with especially a lot of connections to the US. Can you talk about why do you think Armenia is becoming such a tech hub in the past year or so, or a few years?
Probably it's because of education. Because of our education, if you know, we study, for example, we study chess in the school. We are good at mathematics and physics. We had a really great institutions during the Soviet. We are really good at tech, but we are terrible at sales. If we have some good people in sales, I believe Armenia will grow much faster. So, for example, there are a lot of really great companies in Armenia who didn't have sales and they failed. And another thing why Armenia started to on the map on tech, because we have really good diaspora, like good companies who start here. Usually they found some co-founders in the States, or they find some marketing leaders or sales executives in the States, and they can grow faster. And there are a couple of VCs in states who are Armenians, or companies like Service Titan or Pixar who are unicorns and founders are Armenians. Probably because of that, we started to see that there is a money in tech and started to invest in tech a lot in Armenia.
When people see others do it, it kind of reminds me of there was long ago. It was when the first person ran the 5 mile or 5 minute mile, and then everybody's like, "Oh, it's doable!" And suddenly a bunch of other people started doing it, and then it happened actually on a 4 mile at one point, a 4 minute mile similarly, and then all of a sudden others saw it. So it's so valuable when people can start seeing others break, if you will, that barrier. So that's pretty incredible. It sounds like a huge opportunity too for uh, somebody with strong sales skills to really connect in Armenia with these companies. And it sounds like you're saying that's what some of these VCs and others are also acknowledging. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they do. For example, we have a smart gate VC in Armenia. They have really great connections with states. They have their hub in the Glendale, So they do lots of events. So they work in connection.
And I'm curious too, you mentioned states, and obviously that's where we're at, but are there other countries that are also tapping into Armenia heavily?
I don't think so. States is the biggest one at the moment. So, for example, now we have a lot of connections with Germany, but it's still small percentage. So for now, it's states.
I wonder, is that by the nature of just a lot of tech here? Is that by the nature of a lot of the immigration that happened? There being a lot of Armenians here. What do we think the driver?
Probably because there are a lot of Armenians, like Artin, who had executive roles in different companies. There are a lot of great businessmen, so who have like a lot of money and wants to invest. They become angels and start to help Armenian companies. It's probably because of diaspora.
I don't want to speak for every individual Armenian, but collectively, there's this deep desire to help back Armenia. So anytime somebody is in the privileged place financially, especially in tech, they seem to first turn to Armenia and say, okay, that's my first option. Can I get what I want done from Armenia? I know a lot of people around my circle that have set up offices in Armenia, are hiring Armenian companies to develop stuff. It's this interesting connection that the diaspora has that I think, through all the recent events too, which we'll get into later, you see around the world, just a lot of people protesting and marching. It's interesting. It's, in a way, not that different of what's happening with Israel and Gaza and Palestine. Right? There's a lot of similarities. We'll get into that because I'm very curious about that. Let's talk about, the company that I actually connected with you on is Uteach, and not even your larger company. So tell us about that. Like, how was that idea born, and how are you able to run another company besides the bigger 60+ person company?
Yeah, sure. The idea came from web development agency. During our career, we created a lot of different educational websites. We worked for a US company, for our Canadian company, a company from UK, somehow connected with education. And I always had an idea, why not to create something which can be used by everyone? So it will have all the features which they use, because all they use almost the same type of functionality. So every time we had to start to create from the scratch, because there were only a couple of chains. So during the COVID, I had that idea again. It came to my mind, and I started to do some coding. When I realized that it's possible to do, uh, I started to use my free developers who hadn't any projects by the time to create a Uteach. Our first version was terrible. No one wanted to use it. It was like nightmare. Then we started from scratch. It was about 2 years ago. And we created our first product and started our sales in Armenia. When we realized that everyone likes that, we started to expand to other countries.
Who would you say is like the primary customer of Uteach?
Yeah, it's course creators, people who are kind of influencers and have something to teach, or they have a book and wants to copy that into the video course, because people love to watch and not read. Yeah, and so mainly course creators, anyone who creates any content in the web.
And sorry, what made you decide that that was the type of platform that you wanted to create, though, with, there being ample other competitors out there? You had your team with free time and you're like, all right, this is the one? Why that though?
Because there are a lot of competitors, but still people need something more customizable. And before the startup, I worked with my friend. We created another course platform for him. It was chess related, and he always had any technical issues. So I realized that every course creator has issues in technical side, because the platforms which are in the market, it are text heavy, and they usually can't manage that. And even now, there are a lot of competition. You will find a lot of job posts in Upwork or freelancer.com that, hi, we are looking someone who will add my course to this platform, who can create my course to the platform. And we wanted to create something which can be easily usable by any creator without any tech guy.
And is your focus a specific market worldwide?
Most of our clients from United States, like 35%, but now we are focusing emerging markets. At the first, we want to focus on. We started our campaigns in Kazakhstan. We want to get the whole CIS region, because competition here is really low. You can't find any big competitors here. There is only one from Russia, and as you know, now in our region, or in every country, people don't like Russians and they want to change their platforms as well. Yeah, and we want to use the opportunity to get the clients. And when we will grow, then we'll decide to do our campaigns in the States too, because in the United States, competitors spend millions of money. They have millions of money from VCs. It's really difficult to hit with them, Armenia.
That makes sense. Yeah, I was curious if there was a advantage of trying to target specific markets first, and how you were approaching that. So that's interesting.
Do you see Uteach becoming a bigger company than your development company?
It must. It's my dream, and not a dream. Like I'm sure that it will be. I want it to become at least $200 million. So development company never can be that big in Armenia, because we don't have that much talent in Armenia. Like, it's a small country, it's limited resources. You can't turn everyone into the programmer, but you can create something which you can sell worldwide, like Uteach.
Would you consider outsourcing any of your programming and hiring outside of Armenia, or do you already?
We have a branch in Germany, but it's mainly sales and a couple of project managers. And now we are thinking to expand in Portugal, because it's really difficult to find really senior people in Armenia and in specific niche. For example, recently we wanted to hire a Salesforce developer. There is only one guy.
Wow. Talk about he has the market cornered. One guy. That's fascinating. I want to ask you about the recent kind of events between Artsakh and Azerbaijan and Armenians' involvement. And not to get too political, but more from the angle of, how does that impact entrepreneurs like you? And is it an opportunity? Does it hurt you? I mean, what was your general thought about what happened and kind of the impact?
It's always difficult to work when there is any situation in Artsakh or in Armenian border, because we are a small country, and when we started the war, I can tell you that the whole company didn't work for a month. I mean, well, we worked, but we didn't did well. We worked only for 10%. We all our thoughts with our country, with our guys who stands on the border, and we know that Azerbaijan is like friend of us, and they can kill without taking a look. So they want, and they don't want only Artsakh from our perspective. They want all Armenia, and even our government talks about that. That now they want Sunni, which they call Zangezur. Then they will want Sevan. After that, Yerevan, and because of that, it kinds of motivates us to work more and harder. So I think it's my only motivation to build a better country like Israel, so no one can try to attack us. It's my main motivation. Before that, I achieved almost everything which is possible in Armenia, and now it's time to build a better country, much stronger, so no one can attack us.
And from your perspective, when you say much stronger, what do you mean by that?
We have like bunkers everywhere. We have really great weapons like Israel. We have like every man in our country can go to the war, like in Israel, and we have really good economics. So now our GDP is like five or something billion, which is really a small number. I want to see that about 500 billion. So world can depend on Armenia. So something for the world. If it will be something for the world like Israeli or like, I don't know, Netherlands, which is a so small country, no one will attack us. But now Azerbaijan has a gas and oil. Europe use that oil, and because of that, like they close their eyes and like they don't see anything. Like recently, it was kind of genocide because 120,000 people left their homes. Literally, it was a genocide. I visited some families every day, and they didn't have anything. They just they even don't have clothes. They don't have food. I don't know how to call that.
You know, you were comparing Armenia and Israel a few times here. Do you draw any comparisons of the 120,000 people in Artsakh that were kind of stuck there for a little bit without much resources going in because of the corridor was closed? Do you draw any comparisons to that for the people in Gaza now and kind of getting closed off? Or you don't think there are similarities there?
There is a similarity because of blockade, probably. But I know that people in Gaza have support from countries like Iran, or from different Arabic countries. But without that support, they would never attack Israel. Never. They have really good support. Today I read that they got a lot of money. We have bitcoins, so they were able to buy U.S. weapons from Ukraine, which US which US gave to Ukraine. Yeah, so I'm sure they have
Wow, interesting.
yeah, they have a lot of support from Arabic world. Because of that, they started to. It's really different situations. But in Artsakh, people were in blockade like nine months, and after the 9 months, Azerbaijan started the war against them.
Yeah, kind of weaken them first, and then yeah, it's pretty sad. I mean, it's crazy what's going on in different parts of the world in 2023. I would have never imagined in 2023 we'll be dealing with this. Let's kind of pivot a little bit. What kind of advice do you have for entrepreneurs and people kind of trying to start a company, whether it's in the States or outside the States?
Never worry about failing. Like you can fail a lot, and you just need to learn something from that and start again. I had a lot of failed startups, which about I didn't mention, but before Uteach, I had probably 3 or 4 startups which I failed. So for me, impossible is nothing. If you dream about something, if you want to achieve something, you can do it. That's for sure. You just need to start and go through for your way.
When you mentioned those failures before, any particular learnings that stand out from those?
Yeah, couple. I'm a chess player. I was playing chess when I was a kid, and I started company. It was edtech again, but with chess educators, chess coaches, and I failed it because I didn't do my research well, and I realized that if I create something new, people will start to use that. But chess players, they hate computers. They hate softwares. I didn't do my customer uh, interviews well and created something which is useless. So one learning from that you should do your homework at 100% before starting your company, to talk to people to see if it's good solution for or not. You can start with a really small MVP, like not spending too much money, as I did for that company. I developed it for 2 years, and when I launched it, no one wanted to use it.
I think that's probably one of the biggest things so many people run into too, because we see such need for that idea. And then sometimes, depending on the circles we test it on, our inner circles and others might be like, we love it, so you get that false, positive around it. But yeah, no, that's Art and I, some of the things we've tried and or consider whatever, it was always down to like trying to make sure we're thorough enough with that, because it's your first gateway out that I think so many people struggle with. And it was that similar for some of the other companies, or is there any other particular learnings?
There are some other companies. For example, we started an online shop for pet-related products. We are the first one in Armenia, and then we started to partner with a guy who was the importer of the pet-related things. And in the end, we kind of left that company for a couple of dollars, I would say. And because we couldn't partner with him, because he has really different mentality, different thinking than we. And then I realized that I will never go into the business with the people who has different thinking, and I will never invest my time and money into the other's business with a 50-50, because we were there 50-50, and it was his space. He could beat us, and he can do whatever he wants, and we never could understand if he's lying or he's right. So I will never go into the business with someone who is expert in that field with like 50-50, because they can do whatever they want, and you will never understand what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So I think if I heard two of them from you on that one, it was the choose good partners, and then the other one is making sure that there's enough ownership so that you have the ability to override if you disagree where it's headed. Is that correct?
Yes. So about partners, recently I had another business which is not tech related. Again, I chose wrong partners. When it was time to scale up, they couldn't hire people to scale. It was manufacturing business, so they couldn't hire people. And then I decided not to start any kind of business. So if I'm going to do another business after Uteach, I will do it myself.
What you said too about failure and how you can openly talk about these different businesses, I think is so important too, because even though I think a lot of time failing at things has become a lot more like, okay, it's all right. That's just part of the learning process. It's sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. But it's still so interesting how that piece of us doesn't want to fail. But I also think that's why then most people just never even start. Versus people such as yourself, you hear about, and many others who they're successful because they embraced, I won't say they embraced failure, but they accepted failure and embraced the learnings and moved on to avoid having those same mistakes, later. It's the teacher in essence.
For sure, it's a teacher. I never regret when I failed, because like in Armenia, it's really difficult to fail, because when you fail, everyone, even your parents, will start to say, "Oh, I knew that. I told you. You didn't hear me."
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's
Uh,
cultural.
Culture thing. Failures is like, it's nonsense in Armenia. But if you can overcome that, you will become successful.
That's pretty interesting. Put in that dynamic of just culture thinking too, and what that means for failure across the world in general. But yeah, fascinating.
You had mentioned that your, I think, first baby was born when you started the company. How many kids do you have? Is it still one or more than one?
It's two. I have two boys. One is 9 years old, and one 4 years old. So I want more. We will see.
What advice are you giving? The 4-year-old is small. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, so you can't give anything to the 4. But for the 9-year-old, like, what are you trying to instill in him? Are you trying to get him to go to the entrepreneurial route? Like, how are you trying to shape him as an entrepreneurial dad?
It's still difficult because he's just 9 years old. But one thing which I want him to learn, to understand, that failures is not. So even in the school, I know that in Armenia it's different than in the States, but in Armenia, like, getting bad grades is really kind of, oh, that's shame. But even that, I tell him that even getting bad grades isn't that bad. So you can fail on something, but you can become really good in something else.
And I think that advice is so critical in general too, because it's not just around entrepreneurship, but as we get older, as our kids get older, everybody, it's like so much of your life is determined, like that creates the barriers, the buffers, whatever you want to say, so that. And then I do think that when you look at a lot of people, I mean, whether it's struggling with things like anxiety or depression and others, I think a lot of this is because there is that big fear that they constantly have of trying new things, of failure. Like they look at risk, everything differently, because it's like school in some ways teaches you, you go, you study, you get a good grade, and that's like the goal, even though it's like great. But by the time you actually get out of there, you don't then go get a job where the job is to study and get good grades. The job is now to be able to, get past yourself and those, that type of thinking you had before, kind of unlearn, so that you could then learn about what it actually means to engage with people, the political level, and to actually start developing, like, I don't know, the real skills somebody needs to actually be successful in life. We're homeschooling, and we try basically to incorporate a little bit more of, I think, kind of with what you described. But look, we're not worried whether or not you're straight A's. What we're interested in is, are you learning the skills? Do you have the baseline that you need? And are we shaping the right pathway so that you can learn what interests you and pursue those interests? Because also in school, you don't get a chance to pursue interest. You're pursuing what you need for that A. Sorry,
A curriculum. I mean, it's a curriculum. That's what I do. Yeah.
Exactly. And another thing, I want him to teach more soft skills than hard skills, because now everything is like communication, negotiation, and not like knowing maths or physics.
Yep. Very true. I mean, it's kind of no different than when you're hiring someone. You would rather hire for the soft skills, not the hard skills. That's more important.
In our venture company, we interviewed one guy who was really strong senior in like, he knows really well programming, everything. And when we sent him to the interview for our German client, and they said, like, he's a junior. Like, how? So they told us that he's really bad at communication, and senior level for them is rather with great communication, a little bit bad technical skills, than with technical skills and bad communication or soft skills. So soft skills now are much important than hard skills.
Yeah. You know, I also think with AI continuing its advancements, or even when you just think about tools like, what you're building there with your platform, it's like some of the technical side of things are simplified enough so that, people can handle that. But again, the soft skills, and when you're in that, room where you're engaging, it's like that is a little trickier. But again, school doesn't spend a lot of time teaching those. They think they do because you're interacting with other humans, but they're not actually teaching like, ways to really get good at that.
So if people want to get in contact with you that are watching this, where can they find you?
It's easy. On LinkedIn, there is only one Hrair Shahbazyan.
Oh, that's easy. We'll make sure to put a link to your profile on the YouTube.
And your platform too, if they wanted to look for that.
It's uteach.io.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. This was a very interesting conversation with a little mix of politics, which is fascinating. So greatly appreciated. If anybody wants to share this, please do, because some of the stuff Hrair shared is very important. Subscribe, follow, and thanks for watching or listening.